Hello and welcome to the Bee Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast. Tuesday, I can actually say it's Tuesday, and I do have Deri Llewellyn-Davies. I know we're going to just stick with Deri, but I did want to pronounce your full name, Deri, all the way from the Welsh borderlands countryside, so the UK somewhat. And yeah, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, B.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like we're going to have a pretty wild, fun, intense conversation because you and I have seem to have a lot in common, starting even with the fact that we did Zero to Dangerous through the Flow Research Collective, which I did. You did it quite a few years ago, and I did it about 3 or 4 years ago. So here we are, we're going to talk about performance, flow science, lots of different things. But let's just start with a bit about you, and then I'm going to literally throw it over to you because I feel like you've got such a fascinating story, career, life, adventure, etc. Strategist, we're going to call it out. You're a strategist, and I guess your reframing strategy looks like in your new world that you're playing in. So we'll
Mm.
leave it at that, right? Keynote speaker, an endurance adventurer. Like from what I've read about you, I'm pretty impressed. I'm like, my goodness. You founded BGI Strategy and created this strategy on a page, which we all need that simplicity. Your approach has been used by scaling founders and boards. You've authored the book behind you, BGI Strategy, as well as a number of other books by the sounds of things, and some are coming back out. One in particular around life's great adventures, which you now are on the speaker circuit and talking about. Your background spans corporate leadership and you've built multiple ventures. It sounds like this is your third venture, or you've probably had quite a few, but your latest one is right up my alley, and that is Freedom Founders. So the co-founder with another guy from the USA, and I'll let you talk about it, but you've already had tribes set up in UK or London, LA, and I think you said somewhere else, and I'll let you talk about that. But essentially, it's exactly what I believe is the new world order, and I'm pretty sure you do too, and that is that there is no longer a need to hustle. And so, how do we integrate that life workflow where work fits into our lives and you can still be super successful, but you do not have to do it in a way that is completely unsustainable? And of course, as a startup and scaling, bringing those people together so that they feel connected versus disconnected can be lonely. And like you said, it's difficult when you're starting up, after I'm doing it too. So I'll hand it over to you to share a bit more about everything you've been doing and Freedom Founders in particular, and what that's all about.
Jeez, I'm going to try and keep this short then. So I, the quick backstory was I came up through corporate world, so I kind of tick all the boxes everyone needs, and I think a lot of CEOs were all a bit too clever. So yes, I've got the MBA and the strategic marketing. I was an engineer, and I came through corporate world through some of the greatest companies in the world, Mars Inc., Cable and Wireless, Corning, ultimately to European board level. So there's all the boxes ticked.
Well
But
done.
actually, all of those are irrelevant when you get into the mid space, and that 1 to 10 million, 1 to 20 million pound scale zone, which is what I've mastered in the last 2 decades. I came out of corporate thinking I knew it all, and I'm very clever, and then you realize, fuck this, the real world out there for the poor small businesses, Jesus. And that's where I've dedicated my time for the day, and I'll dedicate the rest of my life to it. Because everything changes. And this is why I think corporate advisory into small business is a bad idea. You just have no idea of the pressures, the stresses, the hardness of having a big brand. I used to walk out with the Mars brand. I could walk into anywhere, any place, because it's easy to sell. And then suddenly, when you've got your own brand, which no one knows about, suddenly marketing and sales is a completely different animal. So
Oh my God.
um,
I so
that
relate. I'm glad you're actually explaining this because even me coming out of my advertising industry and scaling business to 20 million and the big brands I've worked in to now starting my own business, taking a
Yeah,
career
all
pivot.
rules are out, right? And I think
Ah,
that's it. You got to just reset everything from ground principles again. And by the way, it took me, Strategy on a Page was only written after I'd advised about 100 companies. So yes, I built my own businesses, and I'm proud of the businesses I've built, but I've also failed epically. I've been bankrupt. I've been through brutal liquidation. So I know the real shit side of business, and I've experienced most of it myself as well as through other boards, right? So only after I'd advised 100 businesses did I go, oh shit, it's the same stuff over and over and over again. Of course, most founders, they're myopic. They just get their one business or they may have another go again. Like, and now I've advised personally, I mean, sitting on the boards of about over 320 odd. I lost count a while back, but 320 is a good enough number for the marketing people. It's more than that, boy. But after advising over 300 boards, I'm absolutely certain it's the same stuff. And
Mm.
it's brutal, and we need to understand it. Now, equally, we're getting really bad advice out there. The advisory space, the periphery advisory space is really diluted and very hit and miss quality wise from the coaching ability and the consulting
Yeah, I
ability
agree.
out there.
Totally agree with you.
So that's a problem. And I think we need to collaborate in this space. Everyone's very myopic again. And hence strategy on a page came to the fore, 2 decades ago now. And I'm passionate in this space. For me, business has to be led with purpose, and we define
100%.
what purpose is. I said that 2 decades ago. That was pretty pioneering back then, and I had a lot of arrows in my back for a while because they were not thinking like that. And I stick to my guns. I literally we just republished that 20 years later, and I didn't change the thing in the book.
Wow. Because
And that's
yeah,
because
because
the fundamentals don't change, B, and that's interesting. Despite tech, despite whatever. In fact, no, that's not true. I changed a few words because back then we were talking about the social revolution, and this was 20 years ago, and tech and web, and all we did was replace that with AI. It's just another tech thing,
yeah,
right?
100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Strategies don't change.
yeah.
So, and that brings us forward, and then that's the kind of quick snapshot too. Super passionate about the mid space, and then over the last few years, I was 50 last year, so I always like to plan in decades, and I was like, right, after all I've seen, the thing that I still see is brutal for founders is lonely, right? And everyone goes, oh, yeah, it's lonely at the top, blah, blah. Yeah. No, it's not. It's fucking brutal at the top, actually. And when the shit show comes, you've got nobody. And I am the trusted advisor. So over the past 5 years, which have been particularly brutal for business, like over here in Europe, we had the COVID and everything else. We had the bloody Ukraine war. The knock-on effect that had across
It's
European
the
supply
same in
chains.
Australia. It's the same in Australia, Jerry. Like we're going through it now, and it's just like it's survival of
Like
the fittest.
shit.
Staying in, like
Oh,
starting building a business, it is survival of the fittest because so many people
and,
quit and go and get a
and it's
job. And I'm like, no, I will not let this beat me.
No, and it's not just survival of the fittest though, B, and I think this is the hard bit, is sometimes you're just in a shit place at the wrong time with
Yeah,
a
you're right,
brilliant
actually.
strategy,
Yeah.
right? And it's like I've seen people with amazing businesses just collapse overnight, no fault of their own, economic changes, and literally it's overnight, you're done,
Mhm.
right? So seeing that brutality and also and I've been very blessed that I have the backs of hundreds of people over those times, and I am the trusted advisor, and they come to me, and I realize that I'm the only one they got to come to. They can't talk to their families. Their partners don't understand them. The other people that've got jobs, like no chance. So they've got nobody that understands the shit show they are in, or indeed the stressful decisions they're making constantly, even if they're on a good run. Because growth's supposed to be great and fun. Growth's really hard.
Yeah, totally.
So so that's when Freedom Founders was born. So I sat down. It was the original concept came from myself in London, and I'm very blessed to be was in a board in America with Jeremy Schwartz. Jeremy Schwartz is the co-founder of Summit. For those in America may well know Summit. Summit was built an iconic brand around the mid space
Mm.
and the founders space in America. Jeremy's, they've all pretty much exited out of that one, the founders, certainly from a day-to-day perspective. And I was like, right, intimacy. This is about deep trust, deep connection, deep interest, intimacy, and transparency. We need to be able to sit around and have a conversation deeply,
Mm.
not just a flitting kind of how are you doing today? I'm fine, and let's just talk strategy. And this is what you need for marketing leads. I'm like, no, we need to sit down and go deep on life as well as business.
100%.
And that was Freedom Founders. So we Freedom Founders has got multiple strings to it, but the Freedom Founders 30 is the core. 30 per tribe. We don't believe, well, we're not going to go above that. With 30, you can build deep intimacy. Anything above that, I don't think we started off with 50, we hit 30 in London, and it was just like, no, that's enough. Stop it there.
So as in 30 founders, sorry to interrupt you, but 30
30 founders.
founders. Yeah, right. Yeah,
30
yeah.
founders per tribe. Because it takes, and we looked across all the science around this, it takes time to build friendships. It
Mm,
takes 50 hours allegedly to
mm,
build a deep friendship with
mm.
someone. So you need to have proper connected time together
Yeah.
and also then curate. So it's not just, yes, we host these events every 2 months, and every month in between we do something different. We do deep dinner parties. We go on mountains together. We literally we curate the time because it's going to take time. Now, what I found is amazing, and it was beyond my expectations, was the key was right up front. I go super deep and super vulnerable. I have to be vulnerable in order for the tribe to be vulnerable. And suddenly that vulnerability has just opened up such deep connections. And finally, they're like, people are going, I can't even talk to my wife about this, my husband about this.
I
This is
love
like,
it.
and that's
So
like,
good.
that's and that's what we're about now. And we plan on building this around the world. This is finding great people, great ambassadors to host these, and then connecting the tribe. Because then, a couple of our London guys are expanding into the US. They're going to go and hang out with the LA tribe, and the LA tribe's going to hang out with the Austrian tribe. And it's like suddenly, because founders, we're the same no matter where you are in the world. It doesn't change. And if we can build these deep trust and this deep connection, then it doesn't, I want to be able to go anywhere in the world and just hang out with cool, amazing founders who are, transparent. No arseholes, no egos, none of that shit. Deep trust, deep connection. So that's Freedom Founders. And that's the next couple of decades for me. I think that's going to keep me busy for a while. So
Yeah, amazing. And how did you come up with a name? Like this is from my brand. Like I'm always really curious about all the different, business names and Freedom Founders. I absolutely love it because it's almost like freedom. You're freeing people, you're freeing founders up from doing their heads in with just the constant stress and in your head versus your, is that like what, yeah, how did you come about with Freedom Founders?
it was really tricky actually, because go rewind a year or so, we've got a whole strategy program, right? Which is all part of Freedom Founders, but it's also available more accessibly out there. And it was the CEO scale up program, right? The usual, because it was all for CEOs and it was scale. And I was like, and we had a number of conversations. And this is back to, I think, know your avatar. It's one of the first things, I
Yeah.
think, fundamentals in business, right? Just know your customer really, really, really deeply. And every time I go and work with a new, we always bring in externals, whether that's in a mastermind setting or my coaching or consulting, bringing consultants in, board people, advisors. And every single time I get to somebody like Brenda Bouchard, I started this with many years ago. I was in his inner circle, and then we had John and Jeff Walker. Every time it's like back to Avatar. I'm like, oh, not again! Like, come on. But it is every single time. And yet here I am 25 years later, and still hadn't cracked it until last year because I used to use the word entrepreneur, then it was business owner, and then it's kind of gone CEO. And I'm like, it's not a fucking CEO. Nobody wants the CEO title. They really don't. We think we want it, and then until you own it. But actually, founder, that for me is the real title. And we were attracting a lot of CEOs who
Yeah,
had
you're right.
jobs, right? And and no disrespect to the CEOs, listening to this who have jobs and you work for someone and you're a CEO and you've got a salary, but you don't have equity. Totally on you, strategy is still super relevant, but it's a completely different mindset. If you don't have
100%.
ownership, and an ownership effect is a super important thing in equity and thing, and the founders have ownership effect because they founded it. For me, the word founder is the word. I also, it's the title you can't take away in that you're a founder, you're a founder. And then, by the way, that means you don't need to be CEO. We can get someone else in to do that. You don't need to be anything. You don't need to be any executive position. In fact, what I'm trying to work out, most people don't want it. There is the rare few that do and they're great at it. But most founders, certainly as you're scaling into the multi-millions, are not the ones to take it to the next level. So therefore, but then there's an identity crisis coming. So if you are CEO and you own that title and you want that title, and you don't actually deserve the title, you're not qualified for that title,
Yeah, it's
you
hard to let
just
go.
trap yourself in.
Yeah.
So founders is the word, 100%. And I look back over all of the greatest companies I've worked with, and it was always the founders. I work with founders. The couple of shit shows I had along the way, which kind of, they just didn't execute, wouldn't do shit, wouldn't do the change. And I'm like, oh, they were fucking employees. Because they're completely different psychologically. Then freedom, I've been preaching freedom for 25 years from a level of purpose, right? Is what are we seeking? We are seeking. And if you actually, we pulled studies on this, and this is ironic. I've been preaching this for 20 years, but hadn't linked it to my brand. So, we are seeking freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of autonomy, freedom of passion, freedom of purpose, freedom from stress. So we've got very clear on the freedoms we're seeking. Not everyone's there, everyone's different. Everyone comes in at different levels. The key is which one are you coming in for? Some
Mm,
people are like, I'll have it all, please. But it's like, okay, which is the primary driver? For
mm,
you to sit there in a comfortable job, which most of us do at some point, to make that ballsy decision to go, I'm going it alone. There's a driver behind that. And we need to understand because that driver can be a force for good or that driver can be a force for destruction if we don't understand it. And the irony being is most founders come in for freedom and they trap themselves in the very vehicle that was meant to freedom. So, the freedom vehicles are bullshit because you get to like 3, 4, 6, 7 million and you're suddenly trapped. You got no time. You're paying yourself last. Cash flow's brutal. You
yes.
lost your autonomy. So you go, that's the freedom paradox.
Yeah.
So, which is actually the next book Jeremy and I are midway through at the moment.
Oh,
So the
I
freedom
can't
paradox
wait to
is
read
coming.
it because it's true. Like like if you like even my own experience, scaling a business and then, leaving and then going, you know what, I'm gonna do it myself. And then, the freedom of that was around my purpose and, feeling wanting to be fulfilled versus chained to what became a holding company and the, all of that, the red tape that goes with going from an indie to a holding company, it was, yeah, for me. And then I was just like, no, this is what I'm going to do next. But it's a good call out because, it's also be careful what you wish for. So you start with your freedom there. And then all of a sudden, that things can suddenly change. And next thing you know, you're like, oh, okay, here I am,
Yeah,
and I'm losing that freedom, or what I call you end up in survival mode. So it's then
yeah.
how do you become aware and get yourself out of it? In terms of freedom is like for me, you're never just completely. Well, you might disagree with me, but there's always things that kind of catch your freedom it's from time to time. So then it's like, okay, well, if I'm in a bit of a sticky situation, how do I get myself out of it? It's like it's that subtracting what's not serving you is my big thing as well. So then how do you bring the flow state and everything into Freedom Founders? Like if you're, you talk about personal and professional and the integration of both. I look at it like life work flow. So how does with the founders, how does it work from a tribal perspective? It's deep connection. Is there almost like understanding when they first join a tribe at Freedom Founders? Is it understanding what's going on in their personal lives, what's going on in their professional lives to then help them put a life strategy or like a strategy for themselves to better cope's the wrong word, but you know,
Hope can be the right word
yeah,
to
you
start
know what I
with.
mean? Like how do you integrate all your learnings from everything you've done over the years, but also the flow science and everything as well? How do you incorporate that?
So the way we've split Freedom Founders has got four threads, right? So it's like a little matrix that runs through it constantly. Now, it's not just there's me, but there's also we are expanding through ambassadors around the world. So this isn't the Deri Roadshow. This is the
Yeah.
what the founders. So it doesn't matter if it's like you in Australia or me in London or Jeremy in America, right? It's always the four threads, and it's then every individual bringing their vibe to it, right? So it's like
Okay, cool.
so, but we don't care how you do it. We've got our own curriculum. So first of all, there's strategy in business. We need to deal with that, right? People do want to strategy on a page is one of the methodologies, and that's a core methodology. But
Mm.
there's other methodologies. We work closely with a load of partners and people around us. If you want an exit planning, we work with exit planning specialists. If you want to go deep on marketing, we work with marketeers. So it's like a massive collaboration in the business space is super important for
Yeah.
me. So it's like you got to find the precision. So if it's marketing that's broken, we've got to find the marketing precision specialist. So business is always a theme. So whenever we do our lab days, we call it the Freedom Founders Labs because it's an experiment. Every day is an experiment when we do it every 2 months, right? And quarter of that is business. And we're going deep reflection and making sure that the strategies are right and bringing in some of the best in the world around those conversations, right? But there's three other conversations that need to happen that day. The second conversation is productivity, time mastery, flow states, ultra states. So, because if we're sitting here just talking on strategy, guess what? You just more strategy is more stress. If your time's fucked and you're not in getting into state, that's just self-perpetuating the machine. So we balance every day with a okay, let's get your time back. Let's release the shit. It's that clearing out and also understanding. We're teaching flow states from the beginning. I love flow states, but we're leaning in on other states because flow is just one
I
state, and
agree. Yeah.
founders need to really balance states. And you need to know, like, okay, I need to smash emails for the next hour. I need to be in ultra productive state. That's not a flow state, right? So, and actually, I need to go to the mat and meditate right now because there's all these questions coming through. So, is meditation flow? It's like no, it's not actually. So, let's talk about a much wider state, which is I want to be, and which is what we're teaching here, which is we should have the best in the world to come in and understand what state do I want to be in right now.
Yeah.
When I'm with my children or my wife, and I'm like, I need to be connected right now. So that's not flow. So we teach that, but then in the afternoons we go live, right? And this is one of the killer questions, right? When founders come to us, one of the first questions I ask is, what do you love to do outside of work? What are your hobbies? What are your passions? What are the things that you do beyond your work? Maybe you don't have them right now, but if so, what is it you used to do and love to do when you were a child? What do you want to do again? And at that, just for founders who are up to their eyeballs here, like the number of messages I've had back, because we do that personally, and they go, "Fucking hell! I realize I don't have a life, right?" And
Yeah.
it's like the responses have been brutal, and that's our job is curating and actually forcing it to an extent. Like we six of us went down kayaking down the Wye Valley 4 weeks ago because a number of them said, I just love to, I love to canoe and I haven't done it since I was a child. I'm like, right, we're going canoeing then. It's like we have to literally put it in the diary for people and schedule it like a business event for people to come out and spend time doing what they need to fucking do, which is get back
It's
to
so
nature,
true.
connect to
Oh my
themselves.
goodness. It's so true. Like just getting people out of the zone, like the zone that they're in. And I could not agree more with you on the flow state is one way in. For me, I'm a big believer in that subtractive psychology. And, we tend to always, whenever we've got a problem we need to address, whether it's in business or in life, we go, oh, solution, I'll just keep adding and I'll just keep adding and I'll just keep adding to my load. It's like, no, how about you just subtract? And it's kind of like a
100%.
completely different mentality. But then there's also this self-actualization piece. And I've just recently done a 6 month training in the USA, around getting those foundations in order and right first, where you feel safe, you feel connected. It's that self-esteem to then transcend. So everyone is different and on a different journey in life, and the same with business. And so for me, I feel like quite often it's back to like you saying you're having to schedule in to go kayaking, but because everyone's on this kind of, well, not everyone, but we're almost like on this, well, I've got to do it this way because this is how everyone else is doing it versus, well, who says? And
Yeah.
this will take as long as it needs to take, just because you don't know what you love doing at the moment doesn't mean you've failed. It just means that let's go and find it and bring back that beginner's mindset and all the energy that comes when you actually do something that is makes lights up your soul, it illuminates your soul. Do you know what I mean? Like I think that is what we lose sight of as founders, in business, in life, in general. Like, do you agree?
Absolutely. And humanity. Let's just go back to humanity in
Mm.
general, right? So I've been doing a lot of research on this over the last few years, and you go back. I'm about subtract. I love your subtraction. That is perfect. It is less is
Oh my
more, and
gosh,
we've got to
so good.
constantly subtract, right?
Yeah.
And I'm edging towards being on the lake with a log cabin and more time there because I just love nature, and the more less I've got, the happier and more connected I am. But let's just go back to us. 300,000 years we've been around as a species. Apparently now they've just gone back 100,000 years, discovered been around a little bit longer. For all of that time, most of the time we were hunter gatherers. And they've actually studied tribes again recently, like tribes that are still active hunter gatherers. 50% of their time is spent in leisure. As humans, we were designed to
Yeah.
blend leisure and work. right? It's in our DNA, has been for hundreds of thousands of years. It's only the last couple of hundred years we fucked that up. So, and if we understand, and it was done by industrial machines smashing humanity, and by the way, and that's now moved into another genre, which is now knowledge workers, same gig, right? So you go, we weren't meant to be smashing it and hustling. Why do you think we've got mental health crises? Why do we think we've got disease? You know, it's like there's a fucking clue, right, all over the world. Something's not right. Um, and you come back to as a founder, like, I want to help people. And I'm very blessed that I'm actually in business and I love business and I help businesses. So I'm like, I'm quite, my very purpose is aligned to business by doing business. But equally, you'll find me up mountains, you'll find me with my children, you'll find me crafting, you find me in the garden because I am better when I'm there. If I'm there and in work, I'm just a better human being. I
Yeah.
feel good, my energy's good, I've balanced. And from back to flow science in particular, more flow outside of work, more flow inside of work. I
Yeah.
get flow in the
Holiday.
mountains, I bring flow into work, right? It's same for creativity, it's the same for meditation, it's the same for everything. We just got to, the more we access those states, the more those states will perpetuate. We are in a point of time where these things have fucking destroyed us.
Oh my gosh.
Now, they're a great tool if used as a weapon properly for good and for focus and productivity. The dopamine shenanigans that have gone on there, and it's just an absolute car crash. The experiment we're running on humanity right now is insane. But I think we can combat it. So I remain stupidly optimistic and positive,
No, I love.
provided we help it, right? We just literally got to help people understand it, because once you understand it, it's pretty fucking damn obvious, which is enjoy life, build amazing business, and enjoy life.
Yeah.
Get your health. And the final bit to Freedom Founders, which I missed earlier, which is health and vitality, longevity. So we measure across everything. We're not woo-woo. So when people come into the tribe, we do biological aging tests. So we're doing the full bloods. We've partnered with one of the top longevity doctors over here. So we're not making accidents. And here's I worked with one of the top doctors in America. I won't mention names right now, but out of all so he's run thousands of patients through clinics in the US, very high level, very high ticket price. They all come in, and a lot of these founders, entrepreneurs, business people who built businesses, and I was like, it's like you give me the blue pill, I just want to live longer, right? And 1 in 4 that went through those clinics and got measured, 1 in 4 had a life-threatening disease and didn't know it.
Mm,
So we in Freedom Founders, we're measuring together.
yeah.
And we
I
will
think.
save lives as a
Mm,
result of it. And I think
yeah.
that's super important. And founders are the bloody worst because guess what? It's the stress that's
That's
driving.
yeah, yeah. I mean that was why I burnt out completely, and I would have caused a chronic illness if I hadn't have, it was already wreaking havoc on me, from a like mental and physical perspective. But it's funny you say this because even recently, a lot of people who I haven't seen for a while or who have seen me on the pod, they're like, "B, you look so different," and I'm like, "Oh, do I?" Because if I look at myself 3 years ago to what I look like now, I was grey, I was pale, I wasn't healthy. Like it's that vitality. It's like, sure, I was able to put the mask on and, put that energy persona on, but deep down, I was just completely and utterly cooked. And I think,
Yeah.
for me, and you are absolutely in the decade where you're like, let's switch it up. And I think this is the thing. We are at a point in time where you're right, AI is just a tool. Let's not get caught up in kind of it was like when mobile phones came in, it was like when emails came in. It is a tool. The big revolution here is that we need to move from this world of hustle and, like work 24/7, and that's all it is. And then life just fits into it. And then,
Mm.
so for me, that is the big revolution. That is the new world order. And the ones that are pioneering that way forward, that's what's going to shape and impact and change the world for the better. Back to your humanity piece, because we can't continue the way we are. The world is sick. Like you said, there's all these kind of mental health and everything going on. And so love what you're doing with Freedom Founders because it's the ability to then go, you don't have to be like the founders of yesterday, for example. Here's a new way to be a founder. And it's about reshaping and redefining what success looks like. I want to switch it up. I know we've probably already been talking too long, so I'll let you go in like 5 minutes because I know it's the start of your day. But and I want to come to your endurance and all, all the everything. You're an endurance adventurer. But when you booked in to do the pod with me, which I'm truly grateful for, you answered the question, which was my question was, what's one unique, what's one unique insight or life leadership or business experience? And this really intrigued me. And it got me thinking, and I'm loving the responses I'm getting, because I'm getting some amazing responses. But yours was links from boardroom to ultra endurance and Everest. Flow triggers in marathon, disables versus no flow in Ironman. Can you talk to me about this links from boardroom to ultra endurance and Everest? It's
I,
fascinating.
So I'm using adventure as a metaphor, but I would say everyone listening to this, you have your own metaphoric spin, right? So, and this is the key is what is it that you love to do beyond business? What is your heart's calling? Where is your soul's intent? It could be yoga, it could be gardening, it could be art, it could be music, it could be anything. For me, it's adventure. So it's not like, I'm not saying climb, smash mountains. That's me. And that is my pure joy. I'm prepared to die for it. And I am because you don't climb Everest without realizing you facing death because I faced it before, right? On Everest, I nearly did die. So it's one of those. That's the true reality: is what's my purpose and what are you prepared to die for? That's deep questioning, right? So when you exploring business to the level I'm exploring it, what's taught me more over the years is so I've climbed 6 and 7 summits in the world, failed on a couple epically, ran 6 marathons across the Sahara Desert, Ironman, and lots of other endurance stuff. So when I'm constantly pushing the boundaries of ultra endurance outside of work, that's where that's real stress. That's really looking death in the eye. So when you come back into business, it's the business board decision doesn't seem so quite dramatic when
Yeah.
you've just sat on the north face of Everest. And so in 2016, we were on the north face of Everest when the earthquake hit. We were the highest men in the world and unrescuable. So when you faced a day like that, a day when 9,000 people died that day in the Himalaya, and you survived and you've come back. Yeah, whether or not we're going to, the sales strategy or the sales numbers this quarter aren't quite right are a little bit fucking
I'm not
irrelevant in the grand
laughing, but
scheme
I'm
of
like,
things, right?
holy shit, that is epic. Like, I'm just like, I've had a few NDEs, don't get me wrong, one in the Philippines, where a cinema roof collapsed on me, but that is epic. What you've just like, and of course, going back into business, you're just like, hey, it's not
It's
that.
just, it's not, it's not going to change the world. It's not going to kill you, right? And or sometimes it might, but from a stress perspective. So what I've learned, and also it's the flow states, and I think this is super important because I was driving so much flow outside of work with the endurance, with the running, with the mountaineering, and I get my flow states in mountains. I bring that flow state back in, it makes me better in business. Again, if it's art or music, the more you drive the pursuit outside of work, the more you'll be better at driving the pursuit inside of work. And for me, it happens to be mountains and adventure, which is a pretty good metaphor generally. Also, this is super important to link to the Ironman thing that I've said to you there, is when I did my Ironman, I hated it. I didn't get into flow state. And the reason with, you know this from because all of your research and your studies in flow. If you don't have an intrinsic motivation, if you don't actually have the very love for doing it in the first place, and you're not doing it for the right reasons, you're not going to enter flow state.
No, not
And
at all.
I didn't like the bike. So I could get into flow in the swim, but I was really shit at the swim. I had my I had it somewhere here.
I'm the
The only
worst
thing
swimmer, by the way. Don't I'm a great runner, but I'm a shit swimmer. So just
So
just
I couldn't swim. So when I decided to do Ironman, I hadn't swum since I was a kid, and I got my 25-meter swimming badge, and I hadn't
that's
been
what
on the
I've
bike since
got.
I was a kid, right? So I was like, yay. So although I could have got into flow in swim over time over a period, I could. I didn't because I was learning and struggling most of the time because I was learning to swim. Then the bike just killed me. So by the time I got to the run, which is the one I actually enjoyed, I was blown up anyway. So there's no bloody flow coming on that one. So my whole Ironman experience was done for ego to get. That's why I have that there because it's not like look at me, I've got a medal. That's a lesson of don't fucking do that. Which is the Ironman badge was done for ego because I wanted the Ironman. I was trying to stay close because my kids were younger as well. I wasn't going off on big adventures, but I didn't get into flow. And it was a miserable few years of hard slog. Welcome to business. If you're in business for the wrong reasons and you haven't got intrinsic motivation driving you and end up doing all the wrong fucking things and you suddenly be a CEO and you didn't want to be a CEO and you're managing the finances and you're not a finance director, it's going to be miserable. And I think this is the same, the lessons of ultra endurance in life and business. It's the same lessons in the boardroom.
Mm.
It's exactly the same. And I think then what I hadn't realized when I wrote strategy on a page, so you can kind of see the page there. It starts with a little red heart, which is purpose. All of the triggers of flow are in the page. I didn't know that when I wrote the book because I didn't study flow 20 odd years
There
ago,
goes the
right?
universe.
But you have to start with purpose. You have to have intrinsic motivation. There has to be a desire and a joy for doing it. Then you have to be growing and learning and being in that flow channel, which you know all about. And it has to be, you got to stack the goals, stacking those goals on the hard goals. That's strategy, right? So it's all there. But I learned that the hard way through endurance and climbing the highest mountains in the world. And then it's only in reflection you go back. Oh, it's the same. It's the same in business, isn't it? And how do you get resilience? I've co-authored a number of chapters in books on resilience, and I'm not a speaker on resilience, by the way, but people keep pulling me in on it. Deri, will you come and talk about resilience? Yeah, I will actually. Basically, go out there and fucking fail a lot, and that's how you build resilience. People seem to want to hack for resilience. It's, what can I learn to be resilient? No, just get out there and
Yeah.
fail and
I'm
keep
really,
going and
yeah,
hard.
I'm really focused
Anyway.
on, post-traumatic growth, which we obviously, learn about. I mean, we already knew about it, but, through Zero to Dangerous. But I've moved it on. I've moved resilience on, like, because resilience is like, that's bouncing back. It's how do we bounce forward? Like, how do we become anti-fragile? How do we become anti-fragile in life? How do we become anti-fragile in business? Because sure, we can bounce back, but we can easily then go back into a fragile state. So learning, you can't always be anti-fragile, right? But what are you taking from being resilient, bouncing back? And then how are you, to your point around, the Iron Man, etc. You were resilient, you stuck it out, even though you hated it. But then you became anti-fragile in terms of you were like, okay, well, what I learned from this is this, and this is how I've bounced forward. So I'm a really big believer, and I think that is part of this new world order we're talking about as well. How do we create more anti-fragile ecosystems in business? How do we make our ecosystem as individuals more anti-fragile to have that ability? I've got two more questions for you. One last one. I'd love your thoughts on this, and it's a more of a personal question, but talking about flow, do you ever get caught up in the dark side of flow?
Um, Thankfully, not so much these days, because I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's super important. I got caught. If you think about the Iron Man, that was, it was not even the dark side of flow. That was going to go in the opposite of flow, which was, ego was implanted, so their flow didn't trigger in the first place. But I think in the early days, when certainly that feeling of invincibility. When you start, certainly in business, I'm in the boardroom, and it's like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm in here, I've got this, I'm like a boss. And after serving on so many boards, there was definitely ego creeping in 10 years ago or so when I was, and on the stages, very doubt, I've been on the, I was, by the way, I hate, you'd never got me on the stage for love nor money when I was a child. And then I kind of knew I needed to learn it. So I went through Toastmasters, went through the Professional Speakers Association. And so over 20, 30 years now, I've skilled, built my skills. So I'm not a natural speaker, just so everyone's very clear on that. But
Mm.
it got to the point where, I was keynoting at the National Speakers Federations and stuff. And I was just comfortable. And I was just like, it felt really good. And that's a dangerous place when you just got, yeah, I got this now. Right. I got
Yeah.
flow. Step
Yeah.
in, flow. So so the answer is no, but I don't like it. No, I'm fine, thanks. It's like I had to learn it. And once I understood and studied the dark sides of flow, I was like, ooh, not doing that again. So I definitely have been guilty of it in the past, particularly around ego. And I've seen a lot of it actually more. I've been part of the Association of Transformational Leaders, for many years over across the world. And spiritual ego is a very interesting one. I've seen a lot of that, and we've got to be very careful with these. Anyone that thinks that call themselves kind of the gurus or whatever, I'm like, just be careful with that bunch. There's a big dark side of flow right there, and I've seen it too many times myself. But I'm so if you ever spot me anywhere near the dark side of flow, call me out, B. And I think this is important that we all call each other out because that's the depth of connection we need. For those who don't understand what we just talked about, I'd say reach out to B and talk about the dark side of flow because first you've got to understand flow, but you have to understand it's got like everything in life, it's got a dark side if we use it in
Yeah.
the wrong way, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The
Yes,
other
good question.
Yeah, and the other part of it is that sometimes you get into a flow state and you keep going and you then lose your track because you've lost track of time, right? And this happens to me sometimes where I have to pull myself out. And so there's this whole need to pull out before because you think if I go for that next idea, it's like adding versus subtracting, right? But what if you just stopped and then the next morning or the next day you go right back in and there comes all the ideas again? So I was curious to understand that. Last question for you, or probably two. What does Freedom Founders look like, given you work in decades? What does it look like at the end of your this decade when you're about to turn 60?
Well, I think the original ambition, it looks like I think we might blow out of the water, but we were wanting to connect 50 cities globally. So the initial ambition was 50 cities globally. That means we're serving several thousand founders globally. That's about 25 billion in economic impact from the growth scales that we can put through that. And we've also got a philanthropic element built in because we're 5% of every founder's membership every month goes back into supporting founders around the world with microloans and stuff. So there's about a billion in philanthropic impact.
Wow.
So we've got we're pretty dialed in, but we're just I think we might blow that out because it's I'm not attached to those numbers. It's just like, can we do a shitload of good and join up around? And this is actually for me, it's about the connectivity. So
Mm,
once you've got a depth in a city, the 1 to 20 million space, some of the greatest strategies for expansion is acquisition, international expansion, capital raising for that. It's all about talent acquisition. So, and the ability to raise capital all over the world, which is what I've been doing for 20 odd years. It's like we need to be able to join up Hong Kong and Dubai and Singapore and the US because I might have a founder in Australia or a founder in America and or London, and the money that's going to fund that is not in that country.
yeah.
The money, the perfect match is somewhere else, right? Equally, because of the beautiful world that we live in, it's so digitally open. The best advice for those companies might not necessarily be in that city.
Yeah.
So it's like, so I'd be able to hook my guys and girls over here and go, oh, you need to talk to Bee because she's dialed in on the flow stuff and she's an amazing coach and she's run a 20 million pound business in the advertising space. You need her. So that ability to connect tribes and facilitate that global flow, and also international expansion, trust. What's the problem with, people needing advice from is trust.
Mm,
Trust's the currency at the end of the day. What accountant do you bring in? What lawyer do you bring in? What mergers and acquisition specialist do you bring in? Fuck knows. It's some random person and you usually get robbed or you don't like them. It's like
100%. Yeah, it's so
that,
true.
that
Yeah.
trust. That
Yeah.
trust is key. So yeah, that's the game plan, but we've got not got a limit on that. And because we are growing and scaling through partners, so it's a partner network. There's no top end to that, and I think we're already attracting some of the best in the world. So it's exciting.
Yeah, it sounds it. It's giving me lots of energy just talking to you. What would be one last question, then I'll let you go. What would be one piece of advice? I'm thinking about this that hasn't come to me yet, that you would give a founder who was at a crossroads with their business, but also their purpose in life. What would be one piece of advice you'd give them or a tip?
So anyone at a crossroads, it always goes back to purpose. And I think that's where we always begin at purpose. I never avoid it. So people come to me and go, we want to do acquisitions. Okay, let's go to purpose first. Why are you doing acquisitions? So I always start at purpose. So, and the book's available. We can get it for free to anybody. There's e-copies available. It's an expensive book on Amazon, so most people like ebooks anyway. So the chapter in there goes through the 5 elements of purpose. I've got this; it's quite available online, etc. Because it's not just like what's purpose. It's like purpose. That doesn't help a lot of people. What the hell does that even mean? If they figured that one out, it wouldn't be in the crossroads, would they? So I look at it from 5 elements. What is the passion? What is the passion and the true love, the intrinsic motivation that's driving it? Now, a lot of times they go, I don't have one. Okay, let's exit this business then. Let's just get out.
Yeah.
Because at least if you know that, then we go, or when I say exit, it doesn't mean necessarily sell. Get yourself out, get someone else in running it that does love it. Because if you do not have a passion driving it, there's a problem coming.
Mm.
The next thing is what is the service and value we're bringing to the world? And that's a really important one. What's the value we're bringing to the world? Because if we can't answer that question, we're screwed when it comes to marketing and scales. And also, if you don't feel you're bringing value to the world, then purpose is going to be a little bit flat anyway, right?
Mm.
Then we're looking at market opportunity purpose. Some people are niche too far. Some people have gone too wide. So we've got to really dial in what is the purpose and does the market actually reflect the purpose? Because some people are just so overexcited about what they're doing, they've missed the market
Mm.
and they've missed the timing. And timing and luck is part of strategy. It just is, right?
Yeah.
Then the final two, which kind of balances it out, is financial purpose. A lot of people, big heart-driven people, are just wrecking themselves, and they don't have its profitability does matter. Otherwise, you don't have a business and you won't scale. So we have to really truly understand the financial purpose of the business. And the final one, which we call impact lifestyle, which is this can come in several angles. What's the lifestyle purpose of this business, right? Because here's the irony: if you are passionate and you're loving it and you're smashing it and the service and value is massive and the market opportunity is good and you're scaling like a bug, like a banshee, and the financial purpose is good, you will burn yourself out. That's the irony. If you don't balance that fifth piece of purpose, even the best businesses where you're loving it and I came in for freedom and like I am smashing it now, you're going to burn. You just
Yeah.
are.
100%.
So
It's a good one.
that's not a quick answer, but you've asked a deep question, right? Which is we have to look and you've got to take a breath, step back and go deep into that purpose. No crossroads. If you start flippantly making decisions in a crossroads, you're likely to be going down a very dark path if we're not careful. That's exactly the time where it's like, stop, the universe is giving you a slap, take a breath and reflect, and then we go again. Now, some
So
of that is
good.
we got to sell, some of that is we got to rebuild, some of that we got to replace talent. A lot of it's talent led. It's like you got the wrong people in the company. If you're feeling like that, including you, you're probably in the wrong role. So it's time to get back to basics. And
Love
I always
it.
go back to basics.
Back to the foundations. Love it. Deri, how do we
100%.
find out more about you? How do we find out more about Freedom Founders?
So Freedom Friday is a little bit underground, so we're not. I'm talking about it because I'm excited about this with you, but it's kind of an invitation only. We don't market it, so you're not
Okay.
going to see it marketed anywhere. It has to come through word of mouth referral. People, because how random people coming in through funnels just isn't going to cut it. It
No.
has to be a trusted
Yeah,
network.
I
It
love
has to
that.
be invited. So you'll see, keep an eye on Freedom Founders, freedom-founders.com. You'll see it come into cities around you. London's, LA, Austin, Texas. We've got eyes on several others around Europe. Dubai, Australia is a come in, Belinda. So B, sorry. So we are there, but we've also building a kind of digital tribe as well for those who, because some people just want to be part of it and they're just not in their city, which isn't fair. So keep an eye out for LinkedIn's the best way of following me. There's only one Deri Llewellyn-Davies on LinkedIn, so that's easy to find
Yeah,
me.
I love it.
And if you want to follow what I'm doing on the kind of ultra state side of things, etc., Deri.live is my personal brand, and you'll always see me updated stuff there.
Oh my
So
God.
yes, and reach out.
I knew this would be a wild conversation in the best possible way. So, Deri, thank you so much. Like, seriously, Tuesday evening, sorry, 8 o'clock for me. And I'm just like, whoo, I want to go and run a marathon myself, an ultra marathon myself after this, but I won't.
Well, as long as it's what you love to do. This is why I do these talks. I'm going to go running. Do you love running? No. Well, don't do
No,
running then. You don't play
I
tennis, right?
actually used to be a competitive long distance runner, but
There
I,
you go. That's you get. That's
no,
your
I'm
vibe.
I'm now all around the functional strength, reformer Pilates, the infrared, studio, hot strength, cardio, all of that sort of stuff. I retired from running a while ago. I did do a half marathon, but yeah, it wasn't. I just found a new passion, a new purpose, which is that. So anyway, but yeah, Deri, thank you
Amazing.
so much. Have a wonderful Tuesday, and yeah, such an honor and privilege, and truly grateful for your extensive time today. Thank you.
Bless you. Pleasure.
Thank you.